Traveling is one that many people all over the world love to do. Louis Armstrong sang a song titled, "What a Wonderful World." Although he is correct that this is an amazing world which we all live in, all parts of the globe are not necessarily safe to visit. In fact, there are some places that are quite dangerous. Drugs, murder, and terrorism are all signs of the perilous world today. Crime is also rampant all across the globe. People from all over the world love to travel. However, you need to think twice and do your research before visiting these hostile destinations. If you weren't aware of all these most dangerous places to visit in the world and had them in your bucket list all this time, you're in for a surprise. Watch this and take in the horror. To help you decide, here are the list of the top 10 most dangerous countries to live in. Number 10. Russia. Russia is known for its cold climate, vodka, bears, or even the recent drug cheating scandal at the Rio Olympics. Russia is also a land of superstitions, from rubbing a dog's paw, but only with your left hand, from money to making a wish if you could successfully toss a coin into Peter the Great's boot, to people being taught not to smile in school. There are a lot of people with orthodox and conservative beliefs, and yes, Russia is one of the most heavily policed countries in the world. However, think about the other facts. Russia had the most revolutions in the last 100 years than most progressive countries of the West. Russians hate rules, so even though police are there, the sense of freedom is much higher than anywhere else in the world. As we say, the strictness of the Russian law is compensated by the lack of necessity to follow it. Russia's high militarization contributes to its position on the list, along with having one of the highest per capita rates of weapons exports. Russia, unlike the other countries on the list, has a Level 2 travel advisory from the U.S. Department of State to exercise increased caution when visiting. Russia is susceptible to transnational and local terrorist groups and individuals inspired by extremist ideologies. Russian officials have also arbitrarily detained U.S. citizens who may be victims of harassment or extortion. Now tell me, do you still want to live in Russia? Number 9. Democratic Republic of the Congo. The 9th most dangerous country in the world is the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The DRC recently experienced an Ebola outbreak, which has claimed over 2,200 lives, according to the World Health Organization. The ability of health workers to provide care to treat Ebola patients has been hindered by the violence occurring in the DRC. Demonstrations are common in cities around the country and often turn violent. Violent crimes are common as well, such as armed home invasion, robberies, and assault, and police lack the resources to effectively respond to crime. Since the 1960s, the Congolese have endured over 2 decades of armed conflict, with over 5.4 million people dead due to war-related causes, making it the deadliest conflict since World War II. Congolese armed groups and elements of the army have a long, brutal history of recruiting child soldiers. The United Nations reported at least 1,000 cases of child soldier recruitment between January 2012 and August 2013. But despite this negative image of DRC, some people still visit this country because of its popular and oldest national park, the Congo's Virunga National Park. It is home to rare mountain gorillas, lions, and elephants, and of course, we don't want to forget that Democratic Republic of the Congo is the hometown of former NBA All-Star Dikembe Mutombo. Number 8. Libya. Libya is a highly cultural country in the Maghreb region of North Africa. It is bordered by Egypt to the east, Sudan to the southeast, Chad and Niger to the south, and Algeria and Tunisia to the west. It also has a coastline along the Mediterranean Sea to the north. Despite the outstanding sceneries of this country, Libya has experienced high levels of crime, civil unrest, kidnapping, armed conflict, and terrorism over the years. The violence in Libya is mostly caused by militias that continue to clash with one another over territory and resources. ISIS has carried out several attacks that killed both civilians and security force members. The capital, Tripoli, and other large cities such as Suman, Al-Jufra, Misrata, Ajdabiya, and Benghazi have been frequent locations of fighting among militias and terrorist attacks. If none of this bothered you, then you might want to listen to this. Almost 1/3 of the Libyan population does not have access to any safe drinking water, partly due to the dry landscape of the desert, which can go decades without rain. Meaning, if you're not killed from terrorist and bombing attacks, then the thirst will. Number 7. Central African Republic, landlocked country located in the center of Africa. The area that is now the Central African Republic has been settled for at least 8,000 years. Despite a peace agreement signed in 2017, chaos in the country has continued to grow and spread. The main source of unrest in the Central African Republic is the clash between the Salika rebels and the anti-Balaka militia. The conflict has displaced 620,000 people internally and created 570,000 refugees leaving neighboring countries. Kidnappings are widespread, as are reports of violence, looting, and human rights abuses across the country. In the absence of effective law and order, levels of violent crime in the CAR, including armed robbery and sexual assault, are very high. Foreigners, including aid workers, have been the targets of violence and kidnapping in the past. We strongly advise against traveling after dark or walking alone in isolated areas. Traveling outside Bangui is dangerous. Armed patrols operate in many areas, and there have been attacks on travelers, vehicles, and convoys, resulting in deaths. Illegal roadblocks are used in some areas to extort money from travelers through bogus fines or intimidation. Roadblock operators may resort to violence in attempts to obtain money or possessions. Number 6. Somalia. Somalia is a country of geographic extremes. The climate is mainly dry and hot, with landscapes of thornbush savanna and semi-desert, and the inhabitants of Somalia have developed equally demanding economic survival strategies. Apart from a mountainous coastal zone in the north and several pronounced river valleys, most of the country is extremely flat, with few natural barriers to restrict the mobility of the nomads and their livestock. The Somali people are clan-based Muslims, and about 3/5 follow a mobile way of life, pursuing nomadic pastoralism or agro-pastoralism. Somalia has high kidnapping risks in all parts of the country. Terror attacks are likely at Mogadishu International Airport, government buildings, hotels, and restaurants. Foreigners, government officials, and UN workers are significant targets of these attacks. Somalia's droughts and food shortages have compounded the already unstable environment, and security and effective police forces are absent. The country is among the world's 10 countries with the youngest life expectancies. Years of civil wars and violence, an unstable government, high levels of poverty, a harsh climate, and other harsh factors have combined to produce a lethal environment in the country where the citizens are highly prone to death due to communicable diseases and violent crimes. Number 5. Iraq. Iraq is often called the cradle of civilization because it was one of the first places on Earth where people began living in one place together. Because it is so old, the country has naturally endured many conflicts and wars. In 1979, Saddam Hussein took power of Iraq and became a ruthless dictator. He invaded both Iran and Kuwait. The United States went to war against Iraq in the late 1980s. In 2003, the U.S. invaded Iraq because the U.S. government was worried that Iraq was making chemical and nuclear weapons. Iraq continues to have both internal and external conflicts, including likely terrorist attacks. ISIS continues to capture and kill civilians and Iraqi armed forces. Other human rights violations, including violations of freedom of assembly and women's rights, have persisted. U.S. citizens visiting Iraq are at a particularly high risk for violence and kidnapping and are a target of anti-U.S. sectarian militias throughout Iraq. Number 4. Yemen. Although the country faces many issues in the modern times, it was known as the Arabia Felix in the past. The term means fortunate or happy. It was called so since Yemen was more fertile than most of the Arabian Peninsula. The mountains of the country invited rains that contributed to a flourishing agriculture in the region. The region therefore supported a stable population for centuries. Even the now famous Cafe Mocha derives its name from Yemen. Mocha is a city located on Yemen's Red Sea coast. The city served as a major hub of the coffee trade from the 15th to the 18th centuries. The mocha beans sold at Mocha were famous for their distinctive flavor. Although the coffee was grown in the city, it arrived in the port city from interior locations where large coffee plantations existed. The Cafe Mocha, a popular chocolate-flavored variant of cafe latte in today's world, derives its name from mocha in Yemen. But then, the Yemeni civil war began in 2015 between two factions, the Yadrab Aman Suhadi-led government and the Houthi-armed government. Yemen has become the world's worst humanitarian crisis according to the UN, where 4 years of ongoing conflict has resulted in 4.3 million people leaving their homes and 14 million people at risk of starvation and outbreaks of deadly diseases. About 80% of the Yemen population, 24 million people, is in desperate need of humanitarian assistance. Number 3. South Sudan. South Sudan, officially known as the Republic of South Sudan, is a landlocked country in East Central Africa. It is bordered to the east by Ethiopia, to the north by Sudan, to the west by Central African Republic, to the southwest by Democratic Republic of the Congo, to the south by Uganda, and to the southeast by Kenya. With several national parks and protected game reserves, there is a wealth of wildlife in South Sudan, including giraffes, buffaloes, lions, elephants, and hartebeest large antelope. But of course, despite the beautiful characteristics of this country, South Sudan has an ongoing conflict, civil unrest, and widespread violent crime, including robberies, assaults, carjacking, and kidnappings. Armed conflict exists mostly between the government and opposition groups, with little to no rule of law or order outside the country's capital of Juba. Areas near South Sudan's borders with Sudan, Kenya, Central African Republic, and so on are particularly dangerous. Additionally, South Sudan is at high risk for climate disasters. Number 2. Syria. Syria, officially the Syrian Arab Republic, is a country in Western Asia, bordering Lebanon to the southwest, the Mediterranean Sea to the west, Turkey to the north, Iraq to the east, Jordan to the south, and Israel to the southwest. Syria exports a wide range of products, including petroleum products, crude oil, minerals, cotton fiber, clothing, textiles, wheat, fruits and vegetables, live animals, and meat. Syria only recently was put in second by Afghanistan. The Syrian civil war has plagued the country since March 2011 and has been the second deadliest war of the 21st century. An estimated 470,000 people, including 55,000 children, have been killed in the Syrian conflict. High levels of violence have been persistent throughout Syria, including the use of small arms, tanks, chemical weapons, artillery, and aircraft. As of March 2019, 5.7 million people have fled Syria and over 6 million have been displaced internally. Last but definitely not the least in our list, number 1, Afghanistan. Afghanistan, officially the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, is a landlocked country in Central and South Asia. Afghanistan is bordered by Pakistan to the east and south, Iran to the west, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan to the north, and China to the northeast. Afghanistan shares a border with China. The 8 to 40 miles wide Wakhan Corridor, which extends 200 miles to China, was used as a trading route which is called Marco Polo, but has been closed to traffic for over 100 years. The route includes a 16,000-foot pass, ice cave, and the Great Dragon Pool, Lake Sorkul. But then again, behind any great country has its dark side. Afghanistan is officially the most dangerous country in the world, according to the 2019 Global Peace Index. According to the UN peacekeeping mission in Afghanistan, the country experienced 3,804 civilian deaths in conflict, 927 of whom are children. Afghanistan experiences deadly attacks from the Taliban across the country, and the U.S. is now in its 19th year of war in Afghanistan. Afghanistan has the highest number of deaths from war and terrorism than any other country in the world. Do you feel a shiver run down your spine already? Our planet is home to many wild and dangerous places sitting right alongside the famous tourist destinations and attractions where we have always wanted to go and are included on our trip bucket list. Have you ever been to any of these countries? Do you know any other countries that should also be included on the list? Let us know in the comment section below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and be sure to subscribe to keep up to date with our future content. Thank you for watching.